Imagine a country where hope was born out of decades of struggle. A new flag rose over a new nation, giving millions the dream of freedom and peace. But within just 2 years of its independence, that dream shattered, leaving behind one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Today, we're diving deep into South Sudan, a country many people don't hear much about, but one that represents a modern humanitarian and security crisis. Let's uncover the complex layers of war, violence, famine, and survival that make South Sudan one of the most perilous places to live today. Welcome to Mystery Shack, where dark psychology, disturbing mysteries, and unsettling theories come to light. If you're ready to question everything and explore the hidden truths of our world, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and let's dive deeper. In 2011, the world watched as South Sudan became the newest country on the planet. After decades of brutal conflict with the North, the people of South Sudan finally achieved independence from Sudan through a referendum. It was a hopeful moment, one that many believed would mark the beginning of peace, freedom, and self-determination for millions of South Sudanese. But that victory came at a tremendous cost. Over 2 million people had already died during the Second Sudanese Civil War, and the infrastructure of the new nation was virtually non-existent. There were few roads, hospitals, or schools. But the people had hope, and for a while, it seemed like things might get better. That hope was short-lived. By late 2013, just 2 years after independence, the country plunged into civil war. What started as a political dispute between President Salva Kiir and his former deputy, Riek Machar, quickly spiraled into a violent, ethnically driven conflict. Salva Kiir is from the Dinka ethnic group, while Riek Machar belongs to the Nuer. The power struggle between these two leaders triggered deep ethnic divisions, fueling massacres, revenge killings, and widespread atrocities. South Sudan's civil war was marked by unspeakable violence. Civilians were targeted simply because of their ethnicity. Entire villages were wiped out. Men, women, and children were slaughtered in brutal attacks that shocked even seasoned observers of war. Between 2013 and 2018, South Sudan's civil war displaced millions. Over 2.3 million people fled the country, becoming refugees in neighboring nations like Uganda, Sudan, and Ethiopia. Inside South Sudan, an additional 1.9 million people were forced from their homes. Families walked for days through dangerous territory with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Many died along the way, either from hunger or attacks by armed groups. Refugee camps became overcrowded and under-resourced. Disease, malnutrition, and violence followed them even there. At the height of the conflict, the United Nations declared famine in parts of South Sudan, a designation that's both rare and alarming. In 2017, approximately 100,000 people were at immediate risk of starvation, and millions more were on the brink. Even after a peace agreement was signed in 2018, the suffering didn't end. In fact, for many people, life remained just as dangerous. Much of South Sudan is controlled by local militias and armed groups. Government forces are weak and often involved in human rights abuses themselves. In some regions, there's no functioning government at all. It's a country where the rule of law has completely broken down. Traveling between towns can be deadly. Armed groups frequently ambush vehicles, looting supplies and executing travelers. Villages are raided at night. Cattle, often the most valuable property people own, are stolen. Raids often lead to mass killings and abductions. For women and girls, life is especially dangerous. Gender-based violence is widespread and systematic. During the war, rape was used as a weapon. Even now, women and girls risk abduction and sexual violence, whether they're gathering firewood or walking to a nearby market. Another devastating feature of the conflict is the use of child soldiers. Thousands of children, some as young as 10, have been recruited or forced to join armed groups. Boys are given guns and sent to fight on the front lines. Girls are often used as domestic slaves or subjected to sexual abuse. UNICEF and other organizations have worked to demobilize child soldiers, but recruitment continues in many parts of the country. It's a cycle that's incredibly hard to break, as armed groups offer the false promise of food, protection, and belonging. Right now, over 7 million people in South Sudan face severe food insecurity. That's more than half the population. Many survive on just one meal a day, if that. And for some, that meal consists of wild leaves, insects, or even mud to stave off the hunger. Conflict has made it nearly impossible for farmers to grow crops. Fields are abandoned because they're too dangerous to cultivate. Flooding and drought, both worsened by climate change, have destroyed harvests, and markets are inaccessible or too expensive because of roadblocks and insecurity. In 2023, humanitarian organizations warned that catastrophic famine could return at any moment if the violence continues or if international aid is disrupted. South Sudan has one of the worst healthcare systems in the world. Hospitals are few and far between, and many have been looted or destroyed during the war. There's a severe shortage of doctors, nurses, and basic medical supplies. Diseases that are easily preventable elsewhere, like cholera, malaria, and measles, kill thousands every year. Maternal mortality rates are among the highest on Earth, and life expectancy hovers around 57 years. For people living in rural areas, there may be no health care at all. Pregnant women walk for miles just to find a midwife. Children die of diarrhea and infections because they can't access basic treatment. The peace agreement, signed in 2018, was a crucial step toward ending large-scale fighting. But the situation on the ground remains tense and unstable. Ceasefires are frequently violated, and armed clashes still erupt between rival groups. In 2024, the transitional government once again delayed long-promised national elections, raising concerns about the commitment of South Sudan's leaders to democracy and stability. Many fear that political rivalries could reignite into a full-scale civil war. At the same time, widespread corruption drains the nation's wealth. Oil is South Sudan's biggest export, but revenues rarely benefit ordinary people. Instead, billions of dollars have vanished through mismanagement and theft. South Sudan is a land of stunning beauty and rich cultural traditions, but it's also a place scarred by decades of violence, displacement, and suffering. it remains one of the most dangerous countries to live in, not because its people are dangerous, but because they have been caught in a cycle of war, famine, and lawlessness that the world has yet to fully confront. But if there's anything we've learned from the South Sudanese people, it's this: where there's life, there's hope. And sometimes that hope is enough to carry a nation through its darkest days. Thanks for watching. If you found this story important or eye-opening, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing this video. Awareness matters, and together we can shine a light on the stories the world too often forgets.